Strong looks different for each of us, and it's time to put focus on our unique journeys that get us there. This space, created weekly, is for athletes to improve their mindset in order to better navigate challenges that come up in sport and in different seasons of life. On this show, we ask the questions that lead to better answers and have the conversations that truly matter. This is the Becoming Your Strong podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the Becoming Your Strong podcast. Super excited to have you today because this is our very first ever guest interview coming to the podcast. And today I have joining us Miss Jessica Gregory, the co-owner of Underdog Fitness with her husband, Kevin Gregory. Jess, welcome to the show.
Hi guys. Well, Kayla, thank you again so much for having me on here. I'm so honored. And your first guest, I didn't realize that. That's so cool.
You are the first guest. It was very specially chosen. And when I was thinking back to guests that I wanted to bring on to the show, there was a specific moment where I remembered being out in Connecticut where you and I went on that car drive, I think, to go get groceries, one of the last nights that I was in town. Mm-hmm. And we were just like riffing, going back and forth about just lessons in life that we've learned and just different things that we've overcome. And I knew, like, dang it, I wish I had my podcast gear. Like, I wish I could have recorded that entire conversation that we had because it was just so freaking good. But I was like, one day when I have guests, Jess is going to be on it. And here we are. So I'm really excited for this.
Me too. And I love the fact that we, no matter where we are, whenever we're together, we just have like those heart to heart life conversations and it just kind of flows. It's great.
It's awesome. Wonderful. So I've been really hitting this home with the listeners just the last couple of weeks since going from Taco About It Tuesday now to the Becoming Your Strong podcast. And one thing that I've struggled with, and I think a lot of just athletes in general struggle with in life, is just celebrating themselves and being able to celebrate their journey. And so one thing special I wanted to bring to this show specifically was that. And so each week I've been asking the listeners to drop like, hey, what's a moment as of recent or even just in life where you have beaten the odds, you've had to overcome them, and you have found your version of strong. So just to kick off the show, like, I'd love to know a twofold of this is if I was to say, Jess, like, what does strong mean to you? What would the answer to that be? And then to second that is, what's a moment in your life where you've truly had to overcome the odds and you've stepped into that version of strong?
Sure. So I guess I'll go with the first one. What does strong mean to me? And I think that there's a lot of different ways that you could take that. You know, you can obviously look at it as, am I strong physically? Mm-hmm. Am I strong emotionally? Am I strong mentally? And I think each person needs to have their own definition of strong for what they feel it is. And for me, I think I look at strong mentally a lot more than like physically and emotionally. Because if you're strong mentally, then the rest will come.
Yeah.
And strong mentally can look like a lot of different things. Can you handle the criticism? Can you handle the obstacles? How do you overcome things? What is your attitude towards life? And I've had to go on this journey where I've really had to take my thoughts captive because naturally I'm a very negative person, which is really surprising. Now I look back at this journey that I've had for the last like 6-7 years and to take my thoughts captive, I really had to like sit with a journal and like a notebook everywhere I went. And whenever I had a negative thought, write it down and then think of like 3 or 4 positive things to combat it.
Wow.
And that really makes you very aware of what you say to yourself and how you look at life. And that just created this mentality of tough and willingness to just like take whatever comes your way and look at it with a positive outlook. And okay, it might be hard right now, but what is the journey I'm going to go through and grow through? And then what's to come on the other side? And I think that's why maybe you and I get along very well because you're just embodiment of joy. And I'm like, oh, this is just great. I love it. And it really also started, now I'll kind of go into the second one. Before I met Kevin, I had gotten out of a really bad relationship. It was not a good story, not that great. And, you know, I was so in love with this person and he was just like, yeah, whatever about the relationship. And I finally got out of it and it was very hard, you know, that heartbreak and whatnot. And I had to find myself again. And I was like, who is Jess? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Who am I? What are the things that I love? And so I went on this like whole journey where I just did whatever I felt like doing that brought me joy. Whether it was going and sitting by the lake with a book and just reading for a few hours, or taking myself out to dinner, just refinding myself. And I learned a lesson that you really have to love who you are and truly become who you are, whether you're by yourself or with someone else, because that's where like your beautiful true self comes.
Mm. Ugh, I'm like emotional already sitting over here because our stories are so similar. I feel like, I mean, we found different ways to get to this mentality, but mine started from toxic relationship, being in that really rock bottom spot, and it's like you finally come, like you almost look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, who am I and what have I become? And it's a
Like,
yeah, how did I get here? And those conversations with yourself, while they're super hard in the moment, they change your life forever if you're willing to actually ask yourself the question and then genuinely answer them. So listeners, it like, I mean, there it is. You hear it, right? Like you have to sit there and have these conversations. And I love even just like your exercise of not just keeping it mentally, but writing it down on paper, like physically stopping and being like, I'm going to write these 3 points down and then make myself also write down the positive things. Like how is life showing up for me in this moment versus all the ways that it's not right now. So I think those are two really powerful things.
and I think too, also practicing gratitude. You know, it's very easy to look at what is going wrong with your life or in the world or something that's bad or negative, but to practice gratitude and look at, you know, yesterday, what are 10 things that were so great about my day?
Yeah.
What are some things that were great about my morning? And it could be as simple as I was driving down the road and I saw a patch of wildflowers. Just noticing the beautiful moments as well
Yeah.
and practicing gratitude.
Yeah. That was one of the moments I had. Like people ask me all the time, like, why the sunflower? And I was like, well, because in the middle of the shitstorm that I was in, I went on a drive just to clear my head. And there was a patch of sunflowers that were off to the left side. And I was like, I not only want to like feel that way, like how do I get to feeling that way, but how can I make other people feel that way? The way that sunflowers, when you just look at them, you get the joy, you get the brightness, and I want to not only embody that, I want to give that to someone else one day, and that's why I keep it with me. It's a reminder of that moment that I've had. So we're just so aligned. I feel like on every level, it's wonderful. So right, so I remember when you and Kevin were telling me just like even the high level, or I even remember listening to a couple of podcasts, whether it was on Ricardo's Rules of Resilience or just some other things that you guys have been on together about the story with Underdog Fitness. And I obviously don't want to sit there and reiterate everything that's been said, but I don't think a lot of people have actually heard the full story behind how, Underdog really came about. So I would be curious to hear it from your angle of when did the idea come about? How did you know that you wanted to pursue it? And just your challenges that you went through, like personally, whether that be mentally, physically, etc. Just to give the listeners an idea of where you've been the last couple of years.
Yeah, so Underdog is actually a really, I think it's an empowering story. Um, so when Kevin moved down to Connecticut, he was working at a big box gym here, and it was a very steady paycheck. It was very reliable. It was very safe. And I say it like that because once we went to open up Underdog, that safety net just flew out the window.
Mhm.
Um, COVID hit, and he got furloughed, and then he was doing like crunching some numbers and talking with one of our mentors, and he wasn't fully excited about going back to the big box gym when they were finally opening. And I'm a teacher, so like my job is very secure. Very secure. So when he was like looking to go back to the gym, they were telling them all of these parameters. You're going to have to clean and force people to wear masks and call everyone who you've ever trained before or done a fitness assessment with and try and get them back in. And anyone who knows Kevin knows that he's not one to pressure anyone. Not at all. And so for him, he was like, well, I don't want to force people to come to the gym if they're not comfortable with it, especially some of my clients are older. And if they're not comfortable being in a place where there's 200 plus people, why am I going to do that to them? And he was also like, it's kind of taking the joy out of what training is for him.
Mhm.
One of our mentors challenged us to do an activity where we looked at how many clients we would need to train in order for him to substitute his income at the gym that he was at,
Hmm.
and factor in and really make a whole business plan, find a space, look at how much equipment costs and what we would need. And once we crunched the numbers, we were like, wait, we could do this. So Kevin looked at me one day and was like, I think I'm going to do this. I want to open up a gym. And at first, it was him and another trainer who had the same mindset, like, let's do it together. The two of us will open up a space. And there wasn't really any conversation about what we all wanted the gym to look like. It was
Mm,
like, let's just open up a gym. So we did with this other trainer. And really quickly, we realized that our values did not align. And that made it very hard because we were trying to operate one way, he was trying to operate a different way, and it just did not create a good environment for anyone involved. So, less than a year into that, Kevin walks into the gym one day and is handed like paper saying that he's fired. And Kevin was like, well, I own this. I can't be fired from something I own.
impossible.
Right? It's impossible. I own it. And so the guy was like, nope, I'm buying you out. You're done. I need you to leave. You have like a week to get out. And so I come home from work, again, teacher, super reliable. And he has like this pensive look on his face. I'm like, what is the matter? And he's like, okay. And he tells me the story about how he got fired from something that we own. And I was like, okay. And instantly that fear set in. And that fear of like, what are we going to do? We have bills to pay. We have a house. We have dogs. What are we going to do? And I don't know what it was, but there was something like we just kind of looked at each other and just knew that it was going to be fine. Like we were going to figure it out.
Mm,
So I'd asked him, I was like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to open up another space? Where do you want to open up another space? Or do you want to go back to the gym that you were previously at because you know that they'll hire you back in a second? And Kevin was like, I don't want to go back. I feel like if I go back, that's taking a step back in the wrong direction. And
yeah.
that's where I want to be. So I took a huge leap of faith and I was like, well, whatever you decide, I'm going to support you with whatever. And for me, that fear of like that unknown was very hard because I was taught growing up, like, have a job, it's secure, it's secure, it's secure. And this idea of entrepreneurship was something that I'd never been through before. And so it was a struggle. And fast forward, we kind of just like had asked people like, hey, do you know anyone who has like a space that we can use? Do you know anyone who? And everyone kind of came to our help and like not our rescue, but the doors just started opening up.
Wow.
We found our space and the landlord was like, I'm really excited to have you. These people are moving out in a month or like a week or some short time period. So it's yours if you want it. And we were like, great. It was the perfect size for us. The flooring for our gym, another gym was like, hey, I have this flooring. I heard you need it. Do you want it? I'll sell it to you at like a really great cost. And we were like, sure, perfect. And then the gym equipment just started like falling into our lap as well. And we were like, wow, this is awesome. But then it came time for like a name for the gym. And we were like, what do we name ourselves? Like, this is such an interesting activity for us to like go through an exercise because we were like, do we want it to be a name that if we shorten it, it could be like an acronym? Or Kevin, known as Bubbles, was like, oh, I'll just do like Bubbles Fitness and Nutrition. And I was kind of like, well,
Mm.
I personally don't love clowns, so I can't get on board with that. So then we just kind of thought of what do we want our gym to embody? And what's the kind of like spirit and atmosphere and community and the type of people who we want to attract to our gym? And growing up, we both felt like we had that underdog like mentality and spirit and experiences. So then we just kind of fell upon Underdog Fitness. And our friend offered to make our logo for us because she's a graphic designer. And here we are with Underdog Fitness. And the colors are our two favorite colors. And our Finley is our logo. And
Mm,
really just kind of all pieced together so beautifully.
yeah. That's incredible. There was a
Mhm.
couple of things that really just like struck me. And it was like that feeling that Kevin had of knowing that like going back to comfort was not going to get him anywhere and that he had to step into discomfort. But more or less, you guys having that moment of like, we know that everything's going to be okay. Like, we genuinely feel like the higher power above, like, we're going to be okay. We just need to follow what our gut intention is telling us right now and just ask the questions, put it out there that we want to do this. Like, I
Mhm.
think that's where people get stuck is like they have this grand idea and then they're like, but I don't know how. Well, nobody knows how they're going to get from point A to point B. You don't need to know the how. You just need to know why you want it so badly, like what it is that you want to accomplish and put it out there and just ask for help. Like if you do that, there will be people that come to your rescue. And it's not to say that there's not going to be challenges, but like how wonderful was it that like gym equipment just started falling into your lap? Like that just to me shows that like you knew in that moment you were on the right path. You didn't know what was to come, but you were just going to keep following it because there was clearly there was life showing up for you.
Yeah. And there were tons of challenges too. Like I look back and, like one of the challenges was even like us getting all of our names and stuff off of the other gyms,
Mm.
like books and records and everything. And that stuff still comes up today. We haven't been a part of it for 3 years. And even just like finding clients at first was really, really hard because all of our clients who were with us at the first gym were
Yeah.
locked into a contract and they were like, well, I'm not going to double pay. And we're like, hey, we get it. Totally fine. Like, we're here for you for whatever you need. And there were just so many different like little things. And, taking that leap of faith and just saying, you know what, this is what I want. I'm going to go for it. And asking for help. I feel like we just need to humbly all sit back and be like, people want to help us.
Yeah.
Our friends and family are there to like, they want to help us. And we just have to ask and, put that ego aside and say like, hey, Kayla, look, I just need your help right now. Can you help me? And I know you'd be there for me. It's just a matter of like putting that ego aside too.
Totally, totally. And so now looking at the growth of the gym, like I just even from like 2023, like when I joined in December of 2023 and then was on the podium chases for the first time through 24 and seeing the amount of people that we brought romping into world championships, I'm like, oh my God, there's blue and green everywhere. Like, can you share just like the growth that's happened over the last couple of years, like numbers or just how things have transformed?
Yeah. So obviously we have like our in-person clients. We have a 9 a.m. crew that come for classes and they're wonderful people. I love them. But that first year that we were opened, Kevin really wanted to find people who, um, the podium chasers, like who wanted to excel their fitness. And of course, in like Spartan races was our main focus at the time. DECA was still a little baby. So we hadn't really like cracked open that shell yet. And so we were like, we really want to just like find a team of people. It doesn't matter where they're from. Because I think like during COVID, we realized that our reach was limitless because of the online space now. So we were like, we want to find people in that Spartan realm who maybe we can't train in person all the time and who can't come to our space all the time, but are the people who are dedicated, who have that grit mentality, who really want to like elevate their fitness and give it their all and see what happens. And who maybe aren't like the elite elites running the Spartan races, winning every race that they go to, because they've got it figured out. We're looking for those athletes who have that raw talent, that potential, and who just need that extra hand and that encouragement like, hey, we know you can do this. So we found a team of 5 and they gave it their all. They were wonderful. Some of them are still here today. And they just gave it their all. They were with us from the start through like the ups and downs. And then year 2, we opened it up and got, I think it was like a team of 10. And of course, like throughout the year, people came in and some people, because of life circumstances, had to leave. And then I think it was year 3, that's when you joined. Kevin took on like this massive group of people. And we didn't want to put a cap on it because we realized, hey, like we can help all these people. And if we can, then we're going to. But then we realized that Kevin got tapped out really quickly. So we were thinking about like, how can we help people still, but just maybe in a different capacity? And it really also came about when you and Dave came to visit and we were going to that comedy show in the hole in the wall place. Don't even remember the name of the comedian. Couldn't tell you who it was. And we were just talking about life and fitness and, what your future goals were and how you just truly loved the community and what we were doing and that you were going to be a lifer. So I don't even remember the exact conversation, but it was like Underdog 2.0 or something. And
Yep.
from there, we were like, well, why don't you just start as like a trainer with us? Because you have the capacity and ability to. And I mean, we trust you with our brand and you've already done great things. So that kind of evolved into let's have some trainers to also help grow the community because Kevin and I can't do it on our own. We can't do it
Mm-mm.
ourselves. And in order to reach more people and to serve and help more people, we needed to bring on you guys. And so now we have you, Ricardo, AJ, a couple other people training. And it's just shown us how big of a reach we can now make. Like, I think we had what,
Mhm.
like 30 or so athletes at Worlds, and we already have more than that signed up for this year. So, I mean, we've kind of like our first year, yeah, like five or so people, year two, 10. And then it just like compounded into this
Mhm.
avalanche of people who we'd never expected. And it's so cool.
Yeah, and I think that quite honestly, it isn't there is a part of it, of course, that is the results and the success that we bring when we show up to races. Like we put in the work and it shows. But for me, like Kevin, I remember the conversation that we had during like our first like Zoom interview, and he was like, "Well, you're out in Colorado. Why not Ryan Kent and Rich Ryan and all of them?" And I was like, "They're great athletes in their own regard, but like from a community and connection perspective, I want you. I want you guys. There is like I remember watching you race, and it wasn't even during the strong when he won. It was during the mile when he was getting his ass kicked." And I was like, that is I don't know why I'm feeling pulled to you, but I am. And then I saw the way that you guys just like really huddled around each other. And I was like, that is something special. That's going to grow like a weed. And I want to be in that circle. Right. So, like, I think that's something that is very well known about you, Jess, is you were the loudest cheerleader in the room. Like, I think at Worlds, you were the only person that I heard cheering, and that was amazing. It was so awesome, but you're truly the glue that keeps the team together, because like you're just that pit crew for the athletes that truly make us feel heard and loved and cared for. Like you're just there to have our back. And so I want to hear from you around like your vision now that Underdog has grown to where it's at, but like what's your vision when it comes to community, because it's clearly really important to you, but like what are some things you want to share about the community aspect?
Definitely. So, like you said, results, they're very evident with our underdog team, but results aren't our main focus. And I think, like, when I look at community, that's something that we protect and hold so dear to us. And I think why I hold it very near and dear to my heart, like our community, is because it's taken me a long time to find a community of people that I could just be my true, authentic self with. And no matter the results of whatever endeavor I take on, race wise or life wise or whatever, I know that my community and my people are still there to support me, to cheer me on, and to pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was part of a few different communities prior. Like when I graduated college, I joined another gym, and the community was so tight, but it was very clicky and it was very outcasty. And it was very, if you're not the stay at home mom, and I'm not, I was like a college
No.
grad. And if you're not like this certain type of person with like, I don't know, this certain lifestyle, you didn't fit their community. And so I left that community. I tried finding others. And I mean, in the Spartan community, it was fantastic because I was finding like minded people, but we weren't always together all the time.
Mhm.
And then that Spartan community, people kind of like left and went their own way and their own path. And, that was really around the time where Kevin and I were opening up Underdog. And we still say to this day, like, we protect our community and we like foster it so much because it is so important to us that people feel loved and supported and cared for. And we don't care about the results as much as people might think we do.
Right.
Results are fantastic. They're going to come if you do the work. But if you're a good person, you are welcome into our community
Yep.
because you know that once that one toxic person comes, then that's it. And I never really had a community like in high school and middle school. Like, I didn't have a huge group of friends. I had like one or two really close friends, and I never had that sense of like belonging. And I never had that sense of like people have my back. And it was just always something I wanted. And so I felt like I never wanted to change who I was to fit someone else's community.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like authentically have one where I belonged and where other
Mhm.
people just felt home in a way that they never did before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that where that starts is authentically knowing who you are first, right? Like, let's go back to where you were in that toxic space. And you had to learn how to love yourself first and accept yourself for who you are, and then figure out who that person is and love that person too. And then from there, like, I mean, we all want community. We all want those people there that are going to be in our corner, but they don't just come right away. Like sometimes you have to really work internally, and then those people will attract you. And sometimes you just have to go out and build it too. Right. So that I think is a really important lesson, and is kind of the conundrum of life is like, yeah, we all want the community, but they're not always there. And especially when we know, like, I know from like the bottom of my heart that if I did not join Podium Chasers, if I did not join Underdog last year, there's no way I would have seen half the success that I saw. It's
Mhm.
just merely like when you join something that's bigger than yourself, you
Mhm.
elevate to a whole different level. So for
Yeah.
people that are sitting on the sidelines that are like watching and like wishing to have the results and wishing to have that, like, you have to get uncomfortable and you have to just let go of that ego and go do it. Go
Right.
be a part of that higher level crew that's going to push you out of your comfort zone. So I know for sure that without that, I would have not accomplished those things. But then there's also the other side of it too. And we were texting a little bit about this around being able to have the community and being able to serve that community, but also still not doing it to the point where it becomes a detriment to you.
Yeah.
And you said something along the lines of serving others being important to you, like super important to you, but doing it in a way that allows you to not lose yourself. So I'm curious to hear, like, was there something recently, or like just scenarios that have happened as of recently where you learned a lesson that is regarding that?
So, as you know, I love serving people. It's like I feel like it's one of my true callings. I just love serving. Like that's why I think I cheer and lose my voice all the time at races for you guys, cuz I just also like back to the community. Like when I played sports, I never had anyone there to like cheer me on and root me on. So I was like, I just want that to be a part of like what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
I think recently, while I will never stop serving people, I also need to look at my own life and my own goals. And I don't know if there's anything that really happened recently, or if I just like thought one day, like, well, when I look back at my life when I'm like 98 years old, am I going to look back with any kinds of regrets?
Mm,
And for a while, a lot of my life revolved around my own fitness and my own journey and my own athletic performance. And not that I ever gave anything up for that, but I think like after I did my ultras and like around COVID time, I kind of just like let that go away. And for a while, I think I used the excuse of, well, I don't know what I want to do with fitness anymore. And I don't know what like race I want to compete in or what level I want to compete in anymore. And I think that was just an excuse to
yeah.
not compete and to not do things. And I could also then use the excuse of, well, I have all of my athletes that I'm going to cheer on now. And I have all of these people who I'm going to help and I'm going to serve. And yes, when we host races, it is very hard for me to compartmentalize. And I don't think I'll ever be good at racing my own races that we host. I just won't be. Like, that's
That's
done.
fine.
That's fine. But I can go to other races. I could go to other gyms and do their events and still serve people because I can support them and help them, but also race my own race. So I think I realized that I was just coming up with excuses and they weren't actual reasons to not race anymore and to not compete. And so I guess I was just like, get out of my own way and
Mm,
stop not doing it. And I think when you hear enough from people on your own team, when are you going to race? When are you going to race? That you have to be like, okay, I actually have to race now because so many people are now saying, Jess, you need to race again. Um, and when you have like Kelly Sullivan telling you, come on, Jess, just race, you really don't have any reason not to anymore.
mhm.
And I think another excuse I was giving myself was my fitness isn't at its peak, so my performance won't be. But at some point, everyone is at that point and at
Yep.
that place where like your fitness isn't where you want it to be. So just go out and do it and have fun with it. And I think too, realizing at Worlds when Kevin did not win the strong this year, but then came back to win the strong teams, co-ed and male. And I look at, okay, the first race, he put too much pressure on himself and he wasn't having fun. And then the second two races, he was having fun with it. So then I think too, that kind of clicked where I was like, well, why put pressure on myself? Just go have fun with it And then you can still race and compete and work on your fitness in the meantime too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm definitely racing again this year. I
Good.
did yesterday with Molly and it was so much fun. I'm racing High Rocks in Miami with one of our friends, and I don't know what else I'll do this year, but I'm going to do it because
Yeah.
it's fun to do it.
It is. And somewhere along the lines, we lost the fun and we replaced it with pressure. And while I totally believe that pressure is privilege for sure, there's certain pressure that's necessary and there's other pressure that's unnecessary that's only going to beat us into the ground. And I think that's the line, unfortunately, that we have to dribble with a little bit.
Yeah.
And Kevin and I actually talked about that this week because I, for an entire year, was like, I'm going elite. I'm going elite. And I went elite and I did really well this year. And I'm really proud of everything that I did. But now after that, I'm like, that was a whole 365 days of just pure, deliberate focus on this one goal. And I'm feeling really burnt. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not feeling the same whip to train, and I'm noticing that it's like, I just don't want to hurt. Like, I don't want to hurt. I did a lot of hurting the last 6 months, like, while I trained and while I raced. Like, I just don't want to hurt anymore. And
Yeah.
so I texted Kevin. I was like, I just need to bring back like deliberate play. Like, I'm reading The Unhidden Potential right now, and we just got past the chapter of deliberate practice versus deliberate play. And I was like, Kevin, this is what I need. I don't know what that looks like, but I just need to let
Mhm.
myself be and let the love for things come back. And it's not that I don't have goals, that I don't want to go after them. I'm just like, when I am tired after a long day of work, I don't have the same, like, gotta go do it. Like, it's just, it's such a hard season of life to go through as an athlete, but you have to go through it because then you have really good conversations with yourselves, with other people, and you learn a lot of things about yourself and what you really want, what you really need. So it's just the waves that we go through.
And I feel like too, if everything is only focused on like a result and a goal,
Yeah.
it also takes the fun out of it.
Hmm.
I tell Kevin this all the time. Like, we read a lot of personal development and growth books and business style books, but I every so often, like once every 3 months, or even might be more than that, I have to put those down and I have to read, I call them my dessert books. Because if I don't continue to read things that I just purely just enjoy reading, if it's
Yeah.
all business, no play, then I'm not going to want to read my personal growth and development and business books. And then I'm not growing at all.
Yep.
So I feel like you have to have that balance. And sometimes it's just taking a step back, letting your body rest, letting, like for you, it might just be taking a few weeks or months and your fitness is there. It's not going anywhere.
It's
So
not.
you don't need to grind for 365 days. It'll be there. It'll be there.
It'll be there, and you just have to trust that it'll be there. But just, again, really realize that if you don't take this time to go internal and figure out what's kind of keeping you up at night, what that block is, it's just going to continue to show up and show up. The universe is really good at teaching you the lessons, especially if you ignore them. So I've learned that more than once. Well, Miss Jess, is there anything that is on your heart? Like, I know you just went to a convention recently. Again, you always have life going on. You work with kiddos all day. Like, there's tons of things always going on in life that you're coming across. But is there anything on your heart that you want to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah, I think we're in the new year now. It's January. Everyone's looking at goals and everyone's looking at how they can make their New Year's resolutions. And I think really one of the biggest lessons I've learned right now is just staying consistent and following through with the things that you want. I think the word of the year that I'm going to use is complete, because I think it embodies a lot of different things. Like, if you set a goal for yourself or something that you want to tackle this year, go out and just do it. Just do it. And like we talked about, like, put your ego aside, ask for help if you need. Don't let that fear stop you. Don't be afraid to fail, because you're either failing forward or you're not making any progress towards anything. And also, like, complete, meaning like complete who you are. Find that whole authentic self that you are and really embody it, because we need everyone to be their authentic self and their beautiful self, because the world needs everyone. Like, the world needs you to be your true self. And I think for a while I put that aside to focus on other things. And so this year I'm focused a lot on, of course, serving others and helping others, but really making sure that whatever my goals are, I'm following through on them and being true to myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's been said, done is better than perfect. And we just got to lean into that for sure.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yay. Well, thank you so much for spending the last 35 minutes of just joy and pure happiness with me. That was awesome just to have a conversation. And I'm so excited to see you in a couple weeks. Yay.
Just a few short weeks and we're
I know
together.
this is short weeks. I get to have you right next to me as my right hand man as we run the very first Deca Strong at Pursuit Fitness. So it should be a good time. And then I get to go be with you again in a couple weeks. I don't know if Kevin told you, but I'm going to come out for the High Rock Strong.
I'm so excited.
Yay. Yay.
Like twice in a matter of a month. It's great.
That never happens. So we're gonna celebrate that.
All the ice cream.
All the ice cream. Well, thank you again for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point during the year, but have a great rest of your evening. And thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.